Hey everyone, welcome to my video review on the Victorinox Alox Folding Hunter Pro. This is a longer video, as you can see by the time, breaking into three parts really. I've got the comparison at the start to the SPYDERCO ENDURA. It's a knife that I felt was similar price-wise, mechanism-wise, function-wise. The blades are about the same, length and thickness. Here's the closest comparison I can make. Then I move on to edge testing from there, where I compare this steel to the VG10. This is a different steel than what Victorinox usually uses, and I use it two different ways: factory edge versus rope, and then a mirror polished 17-degree edge versus rope. Has a cool finger cut seam, so it's just still healing up now. So there's that, which should be cool. And then moving on after that is the video review, where I have all the different likes and dislikes about the knife. So yeah, a longer video, but I think it's relatively needed, because there's a lot to do with this knife. Anyway, let's start off, as I always like to do, get a feel of this knife with some size comparisons to some other knives. Thanks for watching, stay tuned. Let's just hold on that last size comparison. The SPYDERCO ENDURA. It was a knife that I got when I got this knife. I thought this is a bit like, could be Victorinox's answer to an ENDURA class knife. You look at them both, mid-lock backs, very similar blade lengths, opening mechanisms. The handles are, obviously different materials, similar-ish, but not the same, of course. But really, I think it's about as close as you can get from another knife company, is the ENDURA, when I was looking at things to compare to. And it's a pretty common knife, so hopefully this assists you in making a call about this one. So looking at both of them first, we'll go with the most obvious difference is the weight. So this weighs about twice as much as the ENDURA. So bring out some scales here. The ENDURAs, you're looking at about 93 grams if I remember correctly, so there you go. 94 grams for a SPYDERCO ENDURA. The Hunter Pro Alox is weighing in at 177 grams, so it's a fair bit heavier, heftier, chunkier than the ENDURA. In terms of overall dimensions, you're looking at about the same for blade length. The cutting length is a little bit longer on the Victorinox, but not meaningfully so. And the handles are about the same size and have very similar things going on ergonomically, just some light waving on both, just to be nice and tactile to wrap a fist around for sure. The blade thicknesses are about the same. The distal taper on the Victorinox, the ENDURA is a little bit more, so it gets a bit narrower, a bit quicker. But the core stock thickness back at the start is very, very similar, if not identical. The grinds are obviously quite different. So the Victorinox has a low saber grind. You see there, it's a grind designed much for toughness and durability for sure. Lots more stock here, lots more steel before it eventually becomes a V, whereas the Victorinox is a full flat grind, so it starts to narrow from the top, and as it gets lower and lower angle towards the secondary edge bevel. So this has angle, and then the edge bevel angle as well. So you're going to look at something that's probably going to make a better knife for forcing things apart. So say a cheese cutting knife, this is going to be superior than this, because this has a lot of surface stick capability. In terms of slicing, you may find the Victorinox lacks compared to the SPYDERCO, just in terms of that time that it takes to get to the bevel is much more abrupt, so it can be a bit thicker. But neither of these are bad cutters. They both cut just fine. If you're looking to sort of slice an apple up, you might have a better time with the ENDURA. If you're looking to slice cheese and you need that extra sort of wedge effect, you might have a better time slicing with the Hunter Pro. But both edges, as in the apexes, come nice and sharp and have the ability to take a mean edge. So again, just differences. Nothing's really better or worse here, in my opinion. In terms of the mid-lock backs, you've got a very similar mechanism on both. The Victorinox has a much stiffer mid-lock back. It requires a harder push, and then it is a shallower spring. So you push all the way in and you get just a small bit popping up, and then even then you still feel, no matter how hard you push in, as you pull the knife blade around, you see there's still some more resistance. Almost feels like a slip joint crossed with a lock back. So you pull that locking tooth out as far as you can with your finger, and then you poke it down, and there is a fair bit of press required. So pretty sort of, I guess you could either say that it's nice and rugged, or you can just say it's difficult to use. Either way, the SPYDERCO has their little, yeah, I guess it's just for being tactile. Find it with your thumb. You push that in, it pulls the locking tooth out a fair way, and then it just quite easily just opens and closes, and not falls shut, but pushes shut quite easily. So you got that there. Push in. A little bit easier going on the mid-lock back on the Endura. So just a little thing to note there. This is a lot kind of stiffer and more, there's a bit of walk and torque to the blade. Pulling it open, it's got this first bit to pull past, and then it opens up like that. Whereas the Endura, I mean, you can generally flick those open. You won't have as much success trying to flick open your Hunter Pro. Yeah, it'll sort of stop about there. It is just, the whole thing is just a bit tighter and a bit firmer. I think that's on purpose. I think that's people like things that often feel a bit heavy and a bit cumbersome, and sometimes that portrays quality in some people's minds. Moving to the clip, one of Victorinox's first clips. It's a really good one. It's got a full deep carry. It's got nice amount of space just here for your, even thicker pants to sit. So it's going to go all the way down to its spine there, to this lanyard. If it sits in your pocket, it's a well done clip. I think it looks just fine. It's unobtrusive looking, quite nice. Other retention method is obviously this lanyard, which I've put on for the review because it's sort of how I guess they intended the knife to be carried. I don't like lanyards. This will go. I do wish this lanyard hole wasn't really attached per se, like as much as it is. I would rather be able to pop this out than the clip out. You can remove the clip though, because yeah, it just kind of leaves the knife with a big kind of old eyelet on the back there, but not a big deal, cosmetic only. The SPYDERCO clip, the Endura, it's a very functional, practical clip. It's a good clip. It's deep carry. No, it's not deep carry, so you're going to end up with this quite busy looking area of the knife sticking out of your pants pocket. Goes in and out easily enough. They've intelligently put their branding underneath the point of the clip that rests on the handle, and absolutely fine. But yeah, I probably do prefer the Victorinox's clip. It's just a little bit nicer, and I like the deep carry just a little bit more than the shallow carry. In terms of build quality, both of these are not perfect fit and finish wise. So you've got the Endura, you're looking at the centering, you've got the Endura is a little bit off to my right, and the Victorinox Hunter Pro is just a little bit off to the left in terms of centering. So neither of these knives are like show and shine masterpieces. They're both kind of just practical working knives. The Endura has no other issues that I can really see at all. It's got a general sense of quality to it. The plastic isn't the most premium feeling material. This feels a lot more premium, this knife. The Alox is just nicer feeling, and yeah, it's all very well finished and whatnot. One thing to note about both is that if you do have any issues with the opening and closing of these knives, on the SPYDERCO you can actually tweak it and fix it. You can either just muck with the pivot with the Torx, or you could take the whole knife apart if you wanted to and service it. This is pinned construction, entirely pinned, so you cannot modify this knife in any way. And I mean, some buck knives you can put in a vise and give a squeeze. You'd be ruining your Alox if you did that. So it is just the knife you get out of the box is the knife you're going to have. It may loosen up a little bit over time just due to repetitive motion of opening, but that is what you've got. But yeah, in terms of overall quality of construction, they're both quality pieces enough. They're just lacking a little bit in the finish, just a little towards the finicky knife nerd stuff looking at. And then the blade steels. So both of these blades, they both cut very well. They're both sharp, very sharp from the factory. Right now, these blades have not cut anything. They're factory virgin edges. Oh yeah. So we're going to take these to the knife lab and see how much rope each of them cuts using just the front portion of the knife. And then I'm going to sharpen them with a mirror polish and see how much they do with the exact same edge angle. So it would be 17 degrees. So some montages coming up and some numbers on the screen coming up now. Alright, so if this is your first time here, I have done literally hundreds of these rope cutting tests. All sorts of different angles and edges and steels and whatnot. All in a spreadsheet that is linked below. What I generally do is just cut with the same area of the knife in a rolling push cut. Until the knife no longer bites in and slices a held piece of printer paper. I generally assess that as when the absolute cutting edge of the knife is gone. So right now, both of these factory edges are very, very sharp. So a good starting point. However, the next test, where I sharpen them both to the same angle and finish, may be a little bit more scientifically comparable. But this is just seeing what the factory edges do with these knives. So the steel on this one, I asked Victorinox, and the rep sent me a response saying it is AISI 420. So pretty basic 420 stainless steel. That being said, 420 stainless steel, when heat treated right, say by Paul Boss, can hold an edge for a good long time. Depending on the Rockwell, depending on the purpose of the knife, they may have gone for a softer, less edge retaining version of the steel during heat treat. They may have gone and ramped it up as much as they could, and it may hold a really great edge. So that's what we're going to find out right now, cutting twisted sisal rope, which is a natural cactus-based fiber, and then we are going to have some rough numbers to compare it to the Endura and also just other steels in general. So let's get into it. $87, feeling like a bit of a loss there. Alrighty, so that's where I'll draw it there. It's on 87 cuts. Just feel a noticeable sort of flattening perhaps. And yeah, now it no longer sort of cuts easily through the paper. It snags and tears just a little bit. So that's where I'll call it there. So no longer reliably slicing a held sheet of printer paper. 87, that's not too bad given it's 420 class steel. Again, there could be something slightly different about it that Victorinox does, something lost in translation, but you're looking at a, you know, at that level of performance. Now let's check the VG10 on the Endura. Feeling a bit flat now. There we go. Alright, so finally got a dull few millimeters on the SPYDERCO. Again, steering off, not slicing through reliably anymore. At 135. So 87, 135 factory edges. Let's have a look at what happens when I put a mirror polished KME edge on both knives to 17 degrees and see how they go. Alright, so I've gone and put two very sharp edges on both these knives, both mirror polished. Victorinox had, it took a while longer because it needed a fair bit of cutting back. This grind was quite thick, so that's fine now. It's at 17 degrees and it is, yeah, quite bitey. So, just to show you, very much just, yeah, feels a lot sharper than it did before. Factory edge was quite decent though, I must say. So we're going to cut some rope with this one, and then I put the exact same edge on the Endura, which needed a little bit less time because it was almost at 17 as it was. I think SPYDERCO's come from between 18, 19-ish generally in my experience to get to my 17 according to my device. So pretty happy that both the angles on these are the same. Supporting geometry is different, so as I always say, this isn't 100% science, but take it for what it's worth.
So at 170 cuts, this new very sharp mirror polished edge is no longer reliably slicing a held sheet of paper. Injury break. We're at 115.
Alrighty, that's that. Let's get back to those 115 cuts. Let's get back to the knife lab. It's alright, Cedric, I'm all good.
Head is really stressed. Back again, here I am, 115. Cool. 260 cuts of rope and 1 cut of a finger, and the Endura is no longer reliably slicing a held sheet of paper, making for a pretty marked increase on the numbers that the Victorinox steel did. So VG10, owing to having a bit more carbon in it than the 420 series type steels, still could be something different to this one than other steels. It seems to perform pretty well compared to other 420s I've had. But yeah, again, this is probably a bit of a Victorinox special, so you know, it's still not a bad performer with a mirror polished edge on it. This one was better though.
So the knife comes quite nicely in this little Victorinox slide box with the instructions underneath where the knife was resting. The lanyard comes separately packaged. Overall, fairly nice. The instructions aren't particularly in depth. I was hoping they would say the blade steel composition. I did contact Victorinox for that, but they just give you a basic tool rundown, which is really quite simple as there is just one tool. It also does say how to take the pocket clip off, which is apparently by placing it against the table and striking it with the back of your hand. So there you go. Also how to lock and unlock the knife and whatnot.
Alright, so talking points on the knife. So we'll go the good first. So finally, there's a good Victorinox pocket clip on a Victorinox folding knife. Before this, there was the Sentinel, which had a bit of an awkward pocket clip starting about in the middle of the blade. And this one does much, much better, having a proper deep carry clip, and I really, really do like that. It's a clip that I do prefer more than the knife that I've compared it to in this review, the SPYDERCO Endura, and it is very well executed. You can remove it if you just want to carry this in a sheath or in a pocket with just a lanyard though. So there you go, I think the clip is really well executed. It's a one-hand opening blade from Victorinox, which isn't really a super common thing. So there's some one-handed trekkers, there's the other Hunter model, a few Sentinels here and there, different models, but this one is one hand openable and of course one hand closable, probably pushing the backlock in and using a surface or the leg of your pants. It's not a sort of flicking open and shut knife, it's simply too firm. It is really quite stiff, but you can open it with one hand and close it with one hand, not in the cool way that us knife geeks are always doing though. Look, overall, it's got really sound and sturdy construction. This feels like a knife that you could probably use as your primary outdoors folder without a worry at all. It's just generally beefy and strong and seems to have really decent integrity to it in terms of how it's constructed and put together. As I said, some of the fit and finish isn't great, but overall, it doesn't feel like a knife that's going to be at any risk of the lock failing and closing on your fingers or anything like that. Just feels very, very sturdy in hand. So overall, the fit of the knife I think is quite good. As I said before, some of the aspects of the finish leave a little to be desired. The aluminium oxide handles are a real crowd pleaser. This is one of the nicest looking handle materials. I think the Victorinox Alox, I think just is great looking. Feels really nice in the hand. The feel against your fingers is really quite pleasant. It offers, some grip. It's more grippy than just flat Alox would be, but it's not really about that. It is just about having like a nice surface to touch. And this silver one here will wear really nicely as well. Some of the painted Alox, they have that Boba Fett effect where they sort of age, in my opinion, quite awesomely, but if you're after a one that you don't have to worry too much about how it's going to look in a year's time, the silver is the best one to get. They do a red version of this minus the opening hole right now. So yeah, I do really like the aluminium handle, and remaining on the handle, it is really, really comfortable in the hand. So this is a really nice knife to squeeze your fist around. The grooves are not obscene, they're just nice and gentle and just wavy rather than groove. And yeah, so overall it is nice in the hand. The slight hump given by the opening hole gives a nice place to rest the thumb. Bit of jimping on the back there for purchase. The grip is quite firm still, even though it's not as sticky in the hand as the other hunters, which were the rubberized handle. Obviously, still no needs to worry too much about it flying out of your hand, unless you're covered in some kind of grease or something. And of course there is this, lastly there is an engraving plate for personalization, which I do really like as well. It's quite nice, just on the handle, so another little feature there. Look, overall the blade, I found the steel to be a pretty decent performer for 400 series steel. It is still nothing to write home about, of course. It is just kind of basic functional stainless steel. But yeah, I found it a pretty good implementation of the AISI 420 or XCRX, whatever it is called. I'll put it up on the screen. So that was cool as well to see that it didn't just flake out on me sort of after 40 cuts, 50 cuts, which sometimes these lower end stainless steels can do. Seems like the heat treatment, especially combined with, you can see the mirroring of the edge still even after the cut test, done really well. So I was pretty happy with the steel. I don't quite think it matched its competitor in that contest though, the Endura. The grind is built for sturdiness, so again a good sort of outdoors kind of grind. You could probably wedge and pry with this knife fairly well without worrying about the large chunks being torn out of the blade or anything like that. So what do what do you need to know about, what are the sort of the negatives that I can think? Look, so most of these are sort of as objective as I can be, just things that I think are facts. So we'll start off with, this is very heavy. So it's twice the weight of the SPYDERCO Endura. And it's not really doing a great deal more than the SPYDERCO Endura. I mean, yeah, you could probably run, if you had to run one of these over with a car, you'd probably run this one over and it'd still be more likely to work. But then, I don't even know that. That's not an objective thing to say because I can't test that. But there are a couple of things they could have done to mitigate that. They could have skeletonized the liners a little bit. These are full, thick steel liners. Skeletonization, as long as it's full around the pivot, I don't think reduces the strength of a knife liner particularly. Not enough to not do it. So I would like to have seen them do that to take maybe a few, 50 grams off it or something like that. But yeah, it's a weighty beast in your hand and in your pocket too. The fit and finish, as I said, the fit is pretty fine, like it's overall solid, there's no lock, rock or anything like that. The finish, I did notice the factory edge was a little bit uneven on both sides, but of course I usually put my own edges on knives anyway. This mirror is looking quite nice here. And yeah, just that centering issue which I spoke about earlier. The Endura had a centering issue as well, so not a huge deal, and they don't really affect the basic function of the knife. Once you get a bit of crap in the knife pivots, things aren't often remaining perfect unless you're really baby your knives anyway, so not a huge deal there. So I would say, going back to the steel, I would probably argue that it doesn't quite match what the other companies are offering at this price point. And indeed, a lot of this knife is still, although it's Victorinox being a bit more modern than Victorinox usually is, it's still kind of lagging back behind a lot of the other companies making these style of one-hand opening, pocket clip style, everyday carry, ish knife. So I've chosen the Endura for this example, but you could just as easy sub in the RAT2 and D2 as well. Again, you're seeing a better steel, sort of faster action, easier ease of use, movable, pocket clip positions, all that sort of stuff. So just in terms of everything at play, it's still quite old-fashioned compared to what else is on the table. I mean, especially the Endura is the same price. The RAT2 and D2 is about $30 or $40 cheaper here in Australia than this one. It's about the same size. It'll do basically the same work, maybe not being as super strong as this mid-back lock here, but really, there's a lot of competition to this one, and I think it's more going to be one for the real Victorinox diehards. Some people, Victorinox can do no wrong, and they won't see any of my criticisms as valid at all, and that's totally fine, I guess, if you're that sold on a company that you'll buy and support everything they do. I guess there's probably not much point you watching reviews, but in general, I think they could still go a fair way in catching up with what all the other folks are doing, just by making, say, this lighter, even a bit smaller, like a 3-inch version or something like this with skeletonized aluminium handles would just be great. Another thing, I guess, back to being a bit old-fashioned, is that it's all pin construction, so you can't open this one up and alter anything about it. So right now, this knife is getting. I did my rope cut test with it, and I've used it for other things as well. It's kind of getting a bit gritty. Don't know if you can hear that. So yeah, you can blast that out with canned air or with WD-40, and that does work to a certain extent, but after a certain point, you do like to just open things up and have a bit of a look, play with the pivot, whatnot. None of that's available here. It is all completely sealed in construction. So I would like to see them change that. Even if they had, you could pop off the handles and then get to all the hardware, something similar. I think there's a way to do it, that they could do it, and I would like to see them do it. Now we've got a lanyard hole which is quite prominent, and if you're not someone who usually uses a lanyard, you just as soon probably almost take it off, but then, and you could sort of, it's got enough space here that you could probably knock that off entirely without worrying too much about, digging out the back of the knife or anything like that. I generally, I don't care that much about it, but yeah, it's quite prominent if you're not going to use a lanyard and sort of sticking out the back there a bit oddly, but with a lanyard on it, it's quite intuitive, so there you go. The value of the knife, it's $139 in Australia. I think it's a little bit cheaper in the US, but as I said, it's about the same price as the SPYDERCO Endura. It's more expensive than RAT2, D2s. It's about the same, almost the same price as a cold steel American Lawman in Australia. So yeah, you're starting to see vast improvements over this knife in terms of steel and handle materials and just general weight and space saving and modernity, less clunkiness. So I just think it's a step towards other knives, modern knives of this type from Victorinox, but they've still got a long way to go, I think. It is just still very much just a traditional sheath folding hunting knife. And I think putting a clip on it and Alox doesn't quite bump it up into competing really at all with EDC knives from your main companies. And I do love SPYDERCO, but even from other companies like Boca and Cold Steel and Kershaw and things like that, you're probably going to get better deals for the price that do things weight-wise and mechanism-wise that you're probably going to appreciate a bit more. But if you're a Victorinox diehard and a collector, I mean, you probably already left your negative comment and headed off. This is a nice knife and it feels well made, and it functions, of course. You could use this as your outdoors folding knife. You could use it as your working knife. It generally performs just fine. It's just advances that have existed, I mean, for a fairly long time now. Still kind of put a lot of the others above this in my preferences anyway. So there you go. Another final thing is I noticed this blade finish, this matte effect on here, this bead blasting, does tend to mark up fairly well in a bit of a grubby sort of way. Things seem to stick to it quite easily. It's sort of porous as well. So just one thing I hadn't written down yet that I thought I'd just bring up while I'm still looking at it as well. So I would love to see a knife in this satin type finish or the finish of a normal Victorinox blade from this as well. So that's my review of this knife. Finger cuts slowly but surely getting better. It's a completely fine knife on its own, but if you've got experience with other stuff, you can't help but see the shortfalls that still exist here. So that's all I've got to say about it so far. I'll probably keep you updated on it with another review and some more steel testing on this stuff in the knife lab later on. All right, thanks for watching, guys. I'll see you in the next one. Goodbye.